kabuluhan and corruption. So remember what Congress did during Arroyo's time. Oh, and by the way,
Yep.
there could be also misogyny involved, right? Remember during Arroyo's time, the Congress would fight back against Arroyo. And Arroyo obviously is the on the other side of the equation, very unpopular president. My fear was if Lenny had won and if Lenny was seen as not decisive and strong enough, oh yeah, hindi lang Duterte, Marcos, Trapos, everyone will go after that. So it could have been a very unstable government. For all we know, maybe BBM is the perfect transition figure.
Yep.
Meaning, take care of the Duterte chaos, and then hopefully by 2028 we can have a sane, normal-ish politics. Yeah, I've made that argument in writing and on the record. So that's what I'm saying. Maybe sometimes we also have to remind ourselves, brother. I mean, you and I are not the commander in chief, and people could get killed if some big decisions are made. I mean, even yung arresting the Dutertes, you think, bro, that will happen safely? Wala, yung nangyari kay Kiboloy na siege, you'll see 10 versions of that, right? And
Yeah.
as we speak, South Korea is still struggling to deal with the situation of their ex-president.
Yep.
Si Kim Jong-un ang tawag ko sa kanya, Kim Jong-un. President Yun. Now, I want to go to the last part. So we had also a survey dito sa Third Eye saying that actually, when it comes to online sentiment, actually the opposition is not doing very bad. In fact, they're doing very well. There was a big
Mhm.
event, of course, the Kiko Bam campaign sa
Yep.
Iloilo, major endorsement. Ito na, nag-unity na. Nag-unity na. Riza, Lenny, Frank Drilon, former Senate President, everyone was there. Of course, Iloilo is the home base of former Senate President Frank Drilon, former Justice Secretary Frank Drilon. And the numbers look very, very well for the opposition online. A lot of noise, a lot of good positive sentiment. What is your sense about the opposition when it comes to Senate race? Do you think the best scenario here is that the administration will go all in to make sure walang manalo sa mga pro-China or pro-Duterte candidates, and then at the same time that opens a space or two for the BAMs and the Kikos of this world?
Yeah, so there are two angles here that are working in favor of Bam and Kiko. Especially Bam, because I think Bam is ranking higher than Kiko Pangilinan when it comes to the surveys, di ba? So either one of the two, ito yung advantage ngayon. Number one, you have the pink movement and the Dilawan movement that's actually pushing them to win. That's a big force right there. Assume that 16 million is going to all vote for them. Okay, so that's one. Second one, the BBM administrative slate. If they look at the numbers at nakikita nila na, oh, yung may iba tayong mga kandidate dito, mukhang hindi naman mananalo, malayo sobra, then why not itulak na natin si Bam at Kiko para matanggal yung for example, kalaban nila in the last three slots available is si Bato de la Rosa. Pam, tanggal si Bato de la Rosa.
I
So
mean,
they could play this
I
game.
mean,
Yeah. Oh, I mean Marcos, I don't think he's gonna win. But if you look at Bato, kasi Bato could win eh. So that's the point I'm trying to make is that he could win. So by pushing Bam up, you could actually displace Bato de la Rosa in that sense. And because they know that there's a pink movement behind Bam Aquino, baka pwede lang gawin yun. And remember, Bam is not really that the BBM and BAM, I mean, the families are not naman mortal enemies right now. They actually talk, and even
mm.
the
Oh yeah,
the
that event in Sorsogon, di ba, na nag-shake hands
yeah,
si Lenny and BBM, BAM was there, kind of facilitated it
yeah.
from my understanding.
So I don't see why that's an impossible scenario, and I do believe that there is a possibility that it's something that is brewing, hindi harap-harapan of course, pero something underneath. O plan B tayo dito. Ano pwede natin gawin? Kung ito nakita natin itong kandidato natin mukhang malabo to kasi literally ang layo niya, itulak na natin yung suporta natin dito sa isa para at least yun tanggal yung kalaban. Kasi that's the whole point. At least if I was a strategist, that's how I would do it. Titignan ko talaga kung sino yan na lang ipapasok natin. But of course, I won't make that public because of course I'd prefer my
Of course,
slate
of course,
completely
of
is
course.
gonna win. Yep.
Well, I mean, speaking of his slate, kanina, President Marcos Jr. said he may be in the wrong industry after all because nagpalakpakan lahat when Bong Budots Revilla who came in and like palakpakan lahat ng tao. I think we have to all learn the Budots moves talaga. It sells big time when it comes to campaigning all around the country. But bro, I know I cut out a little bit there, but I want to go to the last part of our conversation today, and I think this is a very serious conversation and very forward looking. So basically, there are two dimensions to this. One is, pag tinignan mo yung Pilipinas, I think younger Gen X like you and older millennials like me are extremely underrepresented when it comes to politics. I mean, for heaven's sakes, Macron became the president at my age, 37, 38. He became the president of France, right? Back in
Mhm.
2017. In Thailand, Pita, at the age of 41, 42, he was the prime minister designate until, the king, the mad king, and the military came in and, finished the party. So we were looking around. I was talking to friends and I'm like, bakit wala tayong anything like that? Like, millennials or younger Gen X like you, um, shaping politics from the very middle and kind of like basically middle finger to everyone and say we want to do it our own way. On March in the case of France, the move forward in future forward in the case of Thailand. I was thinking maybe at some point we have to look at that. And then suddenly something also dawned upon me, like, wait lang, what about the Gen Z? Because they will increasingly become the biggest voting
Yep.
bloc. Not yet daw. I was told that still millennials will be the biggest voting bloc and our generations are still the most maingay online. So a lot of this analytics is probably capturing Gen X and millennials. But down the road, we have to reach out to the Gen Z. And this is important because you and I always have this kuya talk advice to the younger men. What is your read of the Gen Z in terms of getting them interested in politics?
Yeah.
Because my sense of Gen Z is they're very skeptical of established institutions. They are not invested in democracy the way even us millennials were. I'll tell you what, in 2016, we were the reason why Lenny won, my
Mm.
generation, because the voting share of Lenny was so high among millennials, it canceled out the boomers who went for BBM. And the
Right.
hope is the millennials will kind of hold the line for now. But Gen Zs are it's I mean it's like an open big question. We still don't have a legit exit poll from 2022. The last survey I saw was by Pulse Asia in March 2022 that said 75% of Gen Zs were pro unity, meaning natuwa
Mm.
sila sa TikTok and pa-cute and all of that. So that makes me think if they're very skeptical of established institutions, if they go on TikTok. Apparently, I was told Gen Zs go to TikTok to Google. Like like we go on Google. Like you go on Google and try to find. They go straight to TikTok and Google, not Google. Like they TikTok what are the best restaurants or what is the best way to get there. You know what I'm saying? That like basically their neural pathways are different from us.
Yes.
And I
So
was wondering, like, how do we win over the Gen Zs for a politics that is forward-looking and hopeful? Kasi medyo cynical lahat ng tao ngayon. And I understand them because they were generation pandemic, generation climate change. My goodness, AGI, artificial general intelligence, is coming and it's going to disrupt jobs. So how are we going to win over the Gen Zs? I know these are very big questions, but I want to tell you, this is what is ticking me right now. These big questions. For heaven's sakes, we have to take over. We have to shape this more directly soon. But we have to have the Gen Z on our side eventually.
yeah. Richard, alam mo right now, with regards to the Gen Zs, ganito lang yun eh. We are doing the work to be able to lay the groundwork for a lot of the Gen Zs. At ang maganda dito, if you look at TikTok, there are some really good Gen Zs out there. Women that are speaking out already, that are political vloggers. I have seen and met a couple of them already, and I'm very impressed. I hope that there are going to be more women and men na sa edad na yon that are going to be learning to speak out more. And not just speak out, inspire people to run for Congress, inspire people to run for councilors, start with kagawad, and be able to move up and learn. That is actually why I'm running for councilor. Because what I'm hoping to do by doing this is show people na hindi ganun kahirap mahirap siya, pero that it's accessible and anyone can do it and it's possible. And hopefully, by this action that I do as an example, ay may mga nanonood ng mga Gen Zs dyan na maisip nila na, pwede pala eh. Kahit sino pala kaya itong gawin. Why not I'll do it na? And if we can do that, one person, just one, every time that we speak out, meron tayong isang napaisip na baka nga pwede akong maging public servant, then we've done our job. That's why I like going to mga university talks. I was in a university talk 2 weeks ago in LaSalle because for me, every time you interact with a student, it sparks that thought in their mind. Plant that seed. Now, one day, they will be the leaders of the world, the leaders of our country. At yun ang pwede nating asahan na mangyari. And I think it will happen. I am not as cynical about it as you are. From what you're seeing, I think that may pag-asa pa naman. I mean, you see a Vico Soto, for example. That's a good example for a lot of the young people right now that, uy, this guy's an outsider if you think about it, and yet he's able to do that. And now he paved the way for a lot of people that are younger than him to say na kung kaya niya, kaya ko rin. And that's what I'm hoping for.
I'm not saying that. I was just looking at the actual numbers. Like we don't even have a single millennial senator. The only
Right.
one running that has a chance is a Villar.
Oh,
You know, that tells you how bad the situation is, right? You go to
right.
other major democracies similar to ours, millennials are highly represented in cabinet
Right.
positions, in
Okay.
their, that's what I'm talking about the numbers of representation. This is not what this is just facts. This is just empirics.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So let me let me counter that with this so kasi ang problem natin with the type of democracy that we have with the senators, it is a popularity contest. So you have to build up your popularity first before you get to a Senate level, which is a problem in itself right there. Ngayon, if you look at naman our Congress and the composition of our Congress, maraming mga may mga ano ba, ilang taon yung mga ibang kongresista natin dyan, 20 plus, late 20s, early 30s, which is great. I actually like the young guns and I like a lot of these young kids right now that are in Congress. So, kung yun ang titignan mo in Congress naman, I think that we have the right representation. You're looking at Senate lang where you have only 24 senators. That's kind of hard when you have 24 seats and yet people still vote for the
Yeah,
popular
but
ones
how
na
many of
matagal na
these
nilang
congressmen,
nakita.
bro? But how many of these congressmen are not from political dynasties too? Now, who happen to be millennial? Do you get what I'm saying? You also have the millennials who are there, but they come from the obese dynasties, right? And I mean it in a technical sense of the word, meaning yung tatay niya nandun na, yung nanay niya nandito na, yung ganyan ganyan. So the millennials that we have are also not necessarily a progressive one or they're necessarily on their own merit. No offense to them, right? So that's what I'm saying. Again, it's not about cynicism. It's a question of like, wait, catch up time tayo. We need to get, things going, right? We need to get
Oh,
things going. Because a lot of the millennials I know are more like behind the scenes. They're like chief of staffs. There are strategies behind them. So like, okay, that's great, but you have to get in. Kaya nga, I love what you're doing. I love what Mark is doing, right? At least you're breaking the psychological barrier.
yeah, but at the same time, Richard, like for me kasi, ang pinakamahirap talaga dito ay, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about political dynasties, and why I believe that there is good and bad in it. Okay, first of all, ang problema kasi natin dito is kung ikaw, ang tatay mo ay doktor, malaking posibilidad ikaw ay magiging doktor. Correct? Kung tatay mo ay artista, malaking posibilidad na magiging artista ka din, di ba? O kaya kung ang nanay mo ay isang architect na magaling, chances are you're going to be an architect. You see where I'm going with this, right? So I understand why political dynasties happen. Kasi pag nakikita mo yung magulang o yung isang family member mo that as a kid growing up, you see that you will tend to want to mimic or be in that same position that
Like
your
Baste
parents are
and
in.
Sarah, like Baste and Polong in the case of the government.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not saying that I think it's a good idea. I think there's good and bad in it. Okay? Now, having said that, okay, so let me first finish that train of thought lang. For example, I'll give you an example. You know naman who Carlo Ople is, di ba? Kilala mo si Carlo Ople, right? Grandson or is it son ni former Senator Blas Ople? He's not a politician. He's a very good speaker. If you hear him speak, magaling siya because he's heard his parents and grandparents speak and do public speaking and stand in front of people all day. And when he was a teen, he was made to do that. Sanay na siya. So he could have been a perfect candidate to be able to move to politics, but he didn't want to go into politics. So what I'm saying is that there is a good use to political dynasties in that aspect. Now, how do you break it? This is where we, you and me, people like us, vloggers that talk about politics, are able to inspire the youth to see that it is possible. Number one. Number two, it also starts with education. That yun ang pinakamahirap gawin sa ating edukasyon dito sa Pilipinas. Kadalasan ang edukasyon natin ay kulang sa pagbibigay ng iba't ibang mga options o mga pagpipilian ng ating mga kabataan sa mga career na gusto nilang puntahan. Kaya mga kadalasan mga kabataan, pag nakakausap ko sila, pag nag-iikot ako, alam mo gusto nila maging vlogger o artista. Sos Mario Sep. I'm not putting down vloggers because we're vloggers. But what I'm saying is that they have nililimita ang imahinasyon ng ating mga kabataan dahil walang nagbibigay sa kanila ng mga tamang direksyon at oportunidad na makita ang mga iba't ibang propesyon tulad ng pagiging public servant. Yon. And that's where we need to start from that impressionable age of uh, 10 to 15. Kailangan nakikita na nila yon. So, that's probably how they should do it. Whether it can be done or not, I don't know. Is it easy? Probably not.
Well, I mean, again, yes, in theory, I see the idea na yung, well, this is very it's a very Filipino mythology, right? Like the mana will be passed from. It's actually a very Southeast Asian Oriental thing. The idea that the mana will be passed from the parents to the children. Like if you have the, I don't know, the mandate of heaven, if to put it in a Chinese way, it goes down, ganon. But as I said, I just all I have to do is to think of Baste and Polong and. But going back to this. Okay, I have no. Okay, ganito na lang. That's why people make a distinction between lean and obese dynasties. Ano yung lean dynasty?
Yeah.
So for instance, I was interviewing si Congressman Geraldine Roman, right? And we were talking about dynasties. And then sabi niya, oh, hindi kami dynasty, ganun. Ganun. But I said, no, but you're a dynasty in the sense that, your family. But sabi niya, but at least it's just, one, like one line. I said, oh yeah, you're not obese, sabi kong ganun. Which is like, yung tatay dito, yung nanay dito, yung kapatid dito,
Yep.
yung kabit dito, anak ng kabit dyan. Yun yung problema ko. Like, having lean dynasties, it's unavoidable, and sometimes even desirable. They're all once in a while, like, I don't know, Churchillian figures, and their children may be as smart as them. But there are also many cases of great parents and then horrible children, brat or
Yep.
depressed, or I mean, anak ni Gandhi. We can talk about, like. But my point is, there's really something peculiarly wrong in the Philippines because even compared to other Asian or Latin American countries who have similar backgrounds to us, ang taas ng concentration 70 to 80% of seats. And then ang taas nung hindi lang concentration of seats being won, but multiple seats simultaneously at multiple levels. So basically, binaboy na yung system. So I see where you're coming from, but for me, it's like we're way beyond that na. Hindi na tayo yung Jokno to Jokno, right? Like, I mean, for me, had the great Senator Jokno been around, and then Chel Jokno
Right.
become senator, yeah, 100%. I have no problem with that, brother. Or even with Pinoy, I didn't have super serious problem that the mom became president and he became president. But my point is that usually the better ones lean lang, and then the really
Yeah.
bad ones are the obese. So yun yung, again, this is the empirical situation we're facing. Again, this is not an idealistic argument. It's just the empirics of it means. And then there's the aspect of it's economics, right? Market capture. Parang monopoly business, di ba? Syempre, sasabihin ng monopoly business, hindi, people love, the reason we are the only product in town is because we have the best product. But what they don't look at is they buy out and intimidate all of their rivals. Kind of like Standard Oil, right? Back in the 19th century.
Yeah.
So I see it's similar. It's a market failure. In this case, it's an institutional political failure. Kumbaga parang oligopolistic or monopolistic practice na yan. Because alam natin when it comes to elections, it's not a question of merit or talino or speech. It's a question of resources, guns, gold, and goons in many parts of the Philippines. Maybe not in Metro Manila or some of the big cities, but marami sa ating mga probinsya, basically it goes down who got the biggest militia and vote buying machine. Unfortunately, that's the dark reality. So doon, I don't buy the dynasty argument that this is a mana being passed down. And I see it more like basically mafioso operation. This is like Palermo, Italy, 100 years ago.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, with that argument, I agree with you on that. Na especially nga yung the different dynamics of whether it's in Luzon versus kung sa Mindanao yan or sa Visayas, and I wanted to actually add this lang, na yung napansin ko mga pala that one of the big problems you have is television and entertainment in general, in how entertainment actually shapes how we view people. And I think they play a big role in why we end up voting for the type of leaders that we have, creates the leaders that we have today. Malaki ang impluensya ng television sa atin hanggang ngayon. At yung pag tinignan mo yung mga palabas natin ngayon, palaging yung mga tema nila pareho na lang lagi yan. At dito mo nakikita na nasi-shape yung mga utak ng ating mga tao dahil sa mga nakikita nila, na tingin nila katotohanan. Ayan, kaya nga mga Lito Lapid, Bong Revilla, Jingoy Estrada, sino pa ba mga action stars yan? Ang dami-dami nila. Tapos yung mga tulad ni Willie Revillame, baka manalo nga yan eh. Kaya doon ako nababahala talaga pag nakikita ko yung mga ganyang mga programa na ipinapakita sa ating mga kabataan. And
But di ba the same yung problem, bro? Kasi napansin ko, even in the academe, supposed to be the most intellectual field, may patronage politics din eh. Even in the show,
okay,
patronage politics. I think the reason why napaka-stagnant, everything stagnant, political stagnant, media stagnant, even the academic stagnant, purong patron-patron game lang yan eh. Hindi siya merit-based eh. And I realize this is a toxic political culture we have developed at every dimension. You have been in the showbiz industry. I have had interaction with people in media and all. I work in mainstream media. Napansin ko, even there, may pagka-dynastic politics din eh. I mean, not in a literal sense of the word, pero parang yung bata ni ganito ay manager ng ganitong
yes.
department, si ganito ng director, yung bata niya, ganyan. Sila-sila lang gumagawa ng movie, sila-sila. I know it's not a merit-based system, to be honest. Barely a merit-based system. Kaya we got all these
Um,
mediocrities.
well, okay, so I'll give you some pushback on this. Ano? That happens in all industries. So, hindi lang na, and there's nothing, I don't think there's nothing I don't think there's, like, completely, I don't think it's completely a wrong thing. I think that's just an easier way to do it. Kasi when you're working in, just using showbiz as an example because that's the one you brought up, ano? Pag sa showbiz kasi, pag ginamit na lang isang producer na sanay sa isang artista na ginagamit niya, pabalik-balik lang sila doon dahil mas mabilis, nakatrabaho na nila, mas okay. At pag mag-recommenda, dahil din doon sa mga ganung bagay na mapagkakatiwalaan mo na pag nirecommenda ni ganun, ni ganyan, maayos yung trabaho. Ganun lang yon. So in any industry, this really happens. And yes, that is the primary way of doing it, but there's also the exceptions to the rule. May mga paraan naman na ginagawa ang ating industriya sa showbiz to be able to give chances to a lot of these up-and-comers na hindi dadaan sa mga politika na pinagsasabi natin ngayon. Tulad ng mga shows like Big Brother where you really get people out of nowhere that's like, oy, bam, we've got a star here. And then, yun na, the next big thing happens from there. So, may mga ganun naman. Sa politics na nga, I want to also mention in politics, ano na, pag tinignan mo naman kasi, yung mga Villar, I'll give you as an example of the Villars. Yung unang tumakbo si Manny Villar, naalala mo, tumakbo siya for president and he lost. Right? But that started his interest in politics. He had the money, he had the money to be able to do it. He had the manpower to do it, and then he was able to turn that into becoming a senator, 'di ba? So started with president, but the move for president, I think he knew he wasn't going to win, but he captured the minds of the people, and then from there became a senator, and then from there groomed na his kids to be able and his wife to be able to do it using his name. So now they're a dynasty. But they didn't start as a dynasty. It only was because, pumasok
The
yung
dynasty
nanay.
yung other side, bro. The Las Piñas, the Aguilar, the that side. Yun yung
Yeah,
dynasty. Yeah.
yes, oh, yun. Oh, yeah. But in terms of the Villar's themselves, yun na yun eh. Yung nanay at yung anak, okay. Tapos, pero yun na nga, I still, that doesn't mean that I want a Camille Villar to be on it. I really don't. I prefer na isa na lang nga. One is more than enough. But unfortunately, I mean, that we are a small voice in this big ocean of politics, and it looks like we're gonna have a lot of political dynasties in this new Senate that's gonna be coming up for 2025.
Well, dynasties are less my worry now than clowns. Total clowns winning over ang bigyan
Oh,
ng magpera o ba yung nayata tayo sa next. No, I want to say last thing. This is important because it's important who will be taking over seats in the Senate because the Sara impeachment almost certainly is a matter of the next Congress, right?
yep.
Your understanding, bro, how important is it that we prevent the clowns from going in, and more importantly, the people who would want to get the Dutertes off the hook
Yeah.
and potentially worse, help the Dutertes to come back to power. Di ba? Yun yung
Yeah.
state na
So,
elections na to eh. This is not a usual midterm elections na referendum on the administration. This is really about the question of will the Dutertes be held accountable, or is it a Duterte comeback kind of dynamic soon?
Yeah. So if you look at it right now, no, may mga lumalabas na surveys. I don't know how reliable these surveys are. That a certain percentage of Filipinos are actually planning to vote for or candidates that are against impeachment. Did you hear? Did you see these numbers? I don't know how accurate or
Yeah, well, there's no
honest.
legit numbers. Ano yan, these are propaganda fights.
Okay. So that's the thing, that kind of propaganda could help them. But if you look at the actual survey of the people that are going to be running and winning, mukhang mananalo naman karamihan are from the alyansa ng Bagong Pilipinas slate. And that's as much as I'm only voting for two or three of the people in that entire administration slate, I am still happy that it's not the other party. Because the other party is way worse than what we're going to be seeing coming into the Senate. Now, yung propaganda na nangyayari dito that's saying that people are only going to vote for senators that are against the impeachment. Yes, you're right. Propaganda nga yan. But at the same time, what I'm worried about is that it could influence some votes. But that's where the pushback happens, and that is where Marcos and that's our BBM should really push back that narrative and say, nope, there are more people that support the impeachment, and senators that they feel are supportive of impeachment are going to be the ones that people are going to vote for. Kailangan talagang i-counter mo yung mga ganyang mga fake news eh. Now, if you have to spin it away from the narrative they're trying to create.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And for me, I think make or break ito even for the Senate. If after all the hearings we saw, after all the expose, after everything, wala rin mangyari, and even worse, things will turn in the right. I think people will just lose faith na in our institutions. Na walang joke time na lahat to. Like no hearing really. I mean, the only hearings that produced a result were Riza Ontiveros hearings, right? Yun lang. Doon,
Yep.
kay Alice Go, kay Kibuloy, that's it. Name me how many
Yep.
other hearings, like Farmali hearings, all those blue ribbon commission, whatever. None of them really resulted in anything serious.
Yep.
So my
And
point is, kaya nawala ng pag-asa ng tao sa, sa Senado, sa ating institusyon, sa ating demokrasya. So my bigger worry is a collapse in total confidence in our state institutions, especially as the Gen Zs come in and become the dominant bloc. Last point, this is where actually I appreciate these conversations because I think people tend to think that people like me who come from the academe and mainstream media were very traditional minded. But you know what? Actually, my take is a bit different on things. And that's why I like working with people like you among others is because ako, ang basa ko talaga, remember the other day nag-trending sana all yung Singapore, di ba? Yung si Lawrence Wong, like, squeaky clean, boom, 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 ganyan, blah. Akin sa tingin ko, that kind of leadership won't work in most countries. First of all, Singapore is not a real democracy. So that's really a selection process among other
yep.
things. But more importantly, I don't think we need leaders who are like IQ 180, Oxbridge graduates. And, I mean, feeling ko medyo overrated na rin yung leadership na ganun eh. I mean, just look at high IQ people like Elon Musk and the mess they're creating. And or if
Huh.
you don't agree with Elon Musk, I can talk about other people. Ang dami mga Ivy League graduates and what they have done. For me, the leaders we need they have to have, of course, a minimum level of intelligence to absorb information para hindi sila mauto ng kanilang mga advisors, right? Because I didn't vote for the advisor. But I think leadership is way more than that. It's someone who can inspire, someone who can take pressure and stress, someone who's willing to take a risk, right? Push the envelope.
Yep.
So no, I don't agree that we need leaders like what Singapore has because Singapore is a completely different model. It's not even a real democracy. It's a city state. They can have this kind of a boys club, Eton club, like smarty, squeaky clean, Oxbridge guys. I don't think that will work for the Philippines, to be honest. And I'm saying as someone who throughout my life tried to be always like that kind of gold standard guy, write for the New York Times, go to the top schools, whatever. Pero ako, pag intindi ko nowadays, dapat relatable ka, bro. The most
Yeah.
important thing is to be spontaneous, relatable, and matapang ka. Because otherwise, all these degrees and squeaky cleanness, walang kwenta yan. Because our country, just like you, as many other democracies, is such a big mess, bro. You need a heavy lifting leadership.
Yeah. And I'll add to that that if you look at naman a good example of what you just mentioned is Pinoy. Now, I use Pinoy as a good example because I don't look at Pinoy as a very smart guy. Okay.
Yeah, pretty
Not particularly
mediocre
smart.
background. Pretty mediocre background. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
mediocre and performance-wise mediocre. But what he did was inspire the people. At dito ako na-impress kasi because of how he inspired the people, maraming mga nagtrabaho sa kanya ng mga technocrats, ng mga magagaling, na marunong talaga magpatakbo ng mga iba't ibang parte ng ating gobyerno. at pumasok sila willingly, wholeheartedly, and they were so inspired and excited to make changes in our government. And the beauty of that was when Pinoy left, he left with a surplus in the budget, and the budget and the national debt, national deficit all improved during Pinoy's time. And I met some of his cabinet secretaries that time. And I remember, I was like, wait, you were from the private sector. Bakit ka umalis ng private sector para pumunta dito? Wow. And then when you hear them say, na-inspire ako dahil kay Pinoy, I'm like, wow, that is what you call a leader if
Very
they
true.
can inspire
Very
people
true.
to do the changes that are necessary.
That's very true. I mean, speaking of the Pinoy administration, look at people very close to me. Ronald Llamas, di man lang nag-graduate, di ba? Parang Ronald Llamas is one of the most sensible and sharpest political minds in the country.
Yes.
Kahit hindi siya nag-graduate. Like, I love that guy. Sabi niya, ako lang yung secretary na wala man lang diploma. Like, that's my point. It's not about squeaky clean,
Yep.
impressive Oxbridge. Like, oh, it's good to have them. There's nothing wrong. But my point is, ultimately comes down to EQ, spontaneity, and courage and all. Because the smart ones will come. You're absolutely right. I remember during Pinoy's time, there were many seniors I had, medyo bata pa ako nun who were coming back from abroad, working in Silicon Valley, working in London City. They would coming back and they would work. And in fact, again, I don't know what's your view on that. They wanted to do the same if Maro has had one Dow. Anyway, we can have a longer. But the idea was that, if you have leaders like that, kahit hindi sila perfect, may pagka-mediocre, whatever, because ultimately they're noble obliged, their heart is in the right place, will bring in the smart people, and the smart people would love to work for the government. Parang nakaka-proud daw to work for government back in the day. And then Digong came and
Yep.
the rest is history. So, absolutely. I really like this conversation kasi sawang-sawa na ako na, oh, we need something like Norway, like Singapore, like New Zealand. Like, no, bro, hindi. It won't work, bro. It won't work. Right? Like, we're like
Yeah.
that kind of a gritty football team that needs a coach na hindi lang matalino sa analytics, pero yung kailangan niya magbardagulan to get the team going, right? This is not like,
Yeah.
feeling ko, our ideas of leadership are very, very narrow. We don't need another Obama. I think the
I
Obama
mean, yeah, but
is
it's
over. Yeah.
Pero alam mo, Richard, I just have to add to that, that kasi remember that Norway and Singapore are very, very small countries, easier to manage. That's why a lot of Nordic countries are very successful because they're very easy to manage. They're very small countries, or basically their population is the size of only like certain states in the
Mandaluyong.
U.S.
It's like,
Or yeah, sure,
Mandaluyong.
even a city, right, in the Philippines. Yan ang size ng buong bansa nila. So, parang nagpapatakbo ka lang talaga ng isang lungsod compared sa isang bansa. Kaya hindi mo talaga mako-compare yon. That's like comparing apples to oranges. When you're trying to manage a massive population like the Philippines, wow, it creates a lot of different problems. And that's how you need somebody who can unify people and inspire people to be able to act for the betterment of everyone.
Absolutely. On that very encouraging note, I think we kind of agree. Like again, I'm not saying we need another digong na sabog. Ayun natin ng bangag. Ayun natin ng, alam mo naman, yung hindi na alam yung basics. No, we want the president who may be mediocre even from a certain standard point, but has the courage, has the heart in the right place, can inspire the right people, get good advice. Kaya sabi ko, for me, like Ronald Llamas is probably the smartest political affairs secretaries we have seen in our era, and hindi siya graduate at all, right? Like, so like that's my point. Like, I love the guy, and he has made that the badge of honor. And there's so many leaders. Lula in Brazil, he's not even a high school graduate. Forget about college. And I think is the best president Brazil has had. Maybe people don't agree with me because I'm too leftist for them, but I can give many examples of these people who don't have the usual squeaky
Yep.
qualifications, but they did so much more for their country than a lot of these people. Having said that, I don't want clowns. I don't want yung siya pa yung galit. You tell me anong batas ang ilalagay. No, no, no. That's not what I mean. Remember, Pinoy was not like that. I mean, he had the minimum intelligence and all. Ibang usapan yung clowns. So that's what, no to clowns, but we also don't need like genius level. We need like a level-headed, courageous leader, relatable leader, and most importantly, brave leader to get things going. Salamat, bro, for your inspiring conversation, because you're a man in the ring. I mean, hindi ito like this is not just a pakwit lang tayong dalawa. You're a man in the ring, so when you talk, you talk with an authority. Mabuhay ka, brother, and looking forward to catching up in person. Tuloy natin itong mga conversation natin, and congratulations on your campaign. Is there anything you want to add on your campaign? For ano na, may website ka na? for volunteers and
Ay,
all.
pare, you need to teach me pala how to do that,
Ayan.
that thing you were telling me. Yeah, I
Yeah,
need that.
Substack. It's just like blog lang. It's just a basic, ano. Sayang,
Ah, sige,
sobrang
sige.
dali. I'll send you a link. Yeah, it's just Substack. Sayang, bro. I'm sure many would love to help you and be part of whatever you're doing in these elections and beyond. Because, ako kasi sabi ko, kilusan ang kailangan natin. We need the movement. It's not
Yeah.
about you winning office, me winning office. It's about us putting something together eventually and pushing things in the right direction. And only then I think the Philippines really can fully fulfill its potential. Otherwise, wala. It's gonna be away lang ng usual dynasties and usual suspects. On that note, thank you very much, brother. And hopefully by the next time we have a conversation, Harry Roque is completely within our area of responsibility so we can have a more direct analysis of the situation. Very nice, very nice. Beautiful, beautiful. Talk to
All
you.
right.
Salamat.